use lawsuits as a kind of a business strategy, which is extremely stupid, and it's the last thing you should do, because you start to give the impression this company is suing me, like the police trying to attack people. When the police starts to brutalize people, they lose the legitimacy as policemen who serve the public. And in the same way, when companies start to attack the customers, and it can be all sorts of lawsuits. In the case of Sony, they sometimes use the RAA and the MPAA to do that, because as you know, Sony is one of the biggest music producing companies, or the mediators and those who sell you the CDs. So they pay these companies. People always blame the front groups. They don't actually think about EMI and Warner and Sony. They just think of these groups of lawyers, and they don't actually think who is funding these people, who is bankrolling them to go after these companies. And Sony is one of them.
I think probably in the future we'll probably have another area of disagreement here, Roy, on the Sony subject. But what I've just realised now, Gordon's back on. Unfortunately, we lost Gordon a few minutes ago. Do you want to try and see if we can get him back onto the show? He seems to be ready now.
Mm-hmm. Let me start to do that. You had quite a lot of issues today, so it's not as though he doesn't have anything to say. He's just struggling to hear what's going on. We're just trying to reconnect. He's on. Gordon?
Excellent.
There.
Is he there? Gordon, are you there? Okay, we'll continue on.
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Well, if you like, what we'll do now is we'll start on with the next section, so at least Gordon is hopefully working from a position of knowledge and knows what we've been talking about. Just probably a very brief mention, this one, Roy. Wanted to hear your take on this. And it was Google this time in regards to censoring the certain words like BitTorrent, Rapid Share, I believe. I was
myself, because you said something about Google. Gordon was mentioning how Google has things labeled beta, so whenever things go wrong, they say, well, it's not ready yet. And this is one of those cases where I was just making a joke a few days ago, trying to say, well, Google can always say it's not exactly censoring results. That's the part of the controversy. For those who don't know, Google obviously makes recommendations for all sorts of phrases. So when you look for a certain phrase, it will make recommendations based on what you people usually search for. And one of the things that people should know, this is not a new thing. I mean, if you look for Islam is in Google, Google basically removed the suggestions because they didn't really want to say what people search for. And sometimes Google suggests it actually censors, not by giving you different results or trying to force you not to view certain results, but not by leading you into certain areas that you search for. And what it did a few days ago, it wasn't going against things like racism or against hatred or against child porn. That's terrorism, child porn. That's the couple of things that companies like to use as an excuse usually. What they did is when you look for torrent, maybe for BitTorrent, Google basically makes no recommendations, which means that Google is starting to censor the notion of using a certain protocol. That's illegitimate, which of course is ridiculous, because I always say, well, you might say torrent is something illegitimate or bad, but I say, well, you can exchange bits by SSH, FTP, HTTP, anything. So you can just go one protocol after another and just saying, well, that's a bad protocol. Why? Because, well, I don't know, because lots of people maybe use it for certain things, but of course they can use anything to pass data around. And Google is under fire, I think, just because it's been publicized so much that they start to enforce copyright-based censorship, when in fact they also run YouTube, of course, so Google is very happy to recommend to you when you look for your favorite song or something on YouTube, they will recommend a completion. But as long as you go to YouTube and you go to Google's site, they will make the recommendation. If you look for torrents and things like that, Google doesn't really want to help you out.
Well,
yeah,
hopefully
that's basically it. I mean, if you search for, say, Pink Floyd, it won't autocomplete with Pink Floyd torrent. It'll give you various links for where to buy Pink Floyd stuff, or as you said, Pink Floyd on YouTube. Watch Pink Floyd illegally uploaded on YouTube. No, I mean, if they wanted to block and censor protocols and ports and things like that for what they were getting used for. Well, there's plenty of sites like RapidShare that you can go and download full albums on. They would be running on HTTP, so why don't Google just block all of the HTTP? Oh, hang on a minute, that's every website. Can't really do that, can they? So, I mean, I've had this debate in the Linux Mint channels. I've got a post that I've been working on that I'm kind of holding back on a little bit. It's just the idea that you can't, in the Linux Mint channels, you've got there's a policy of not talking about illegal things, and it gets frankly ridiculous. It really does. Someone comes in asking about BitTorrent, it's like, well, no, we've got to stick our heads in the sand and say, no, can't talk about that. Can't give you any advice on that. Just because it's BitTorrent, you can't do that. So it does get ridiculous. I got sidetracked there, but yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the whole story, and I got the impression it was a little bit of a storm and teacup, because although it didn't predict your the word BitTorrent, if you press return, you still, like Roy says, you still get the same results. And the question I would have is, if somebody didn't know what BitTorrent was, they wouldn't be looking for it in the first place. So they probably, if they saw a BitTorrent suggestion, would think, well, what on earth's that, and not probably choose it anyway.
Well, the thing that they want, the thing that the copyright holders want, the right holders want, is they want to game the results. They want to ensure that the results that come up favour them better than their own companies, their own online services, whether it's iTunes or I don't know, have any of the other recording industry even got? Have they even heard of the internet? Have they got online stores? I don't know. I've never heard of them. So they want to game the results, essentially. They want to knock a lot of the illegal the stuff that they couldn't do, that their fans are getting their stuff from. They want to knock them further back in the ratings and ensure that their stuff comes up higher in the results. The problem with that is they've got to get off their arse and actually create these sites, and they've got to do it in such a way that compels people to want to visit them. I mean, I kid you not, the only online store for music that I have heard of is iTunes. That's the only one, and I wouldn't buy from iTunes mainly because of all the tracking and all that. But that's the only one I've heard of. Where are the rest of them?
Well, the shame is, I mean, from these actions, is that there are going to be some innocent organisations that are going to suffer. I mean, one that springs to mind is going to be Vodo, and I hope I pronounced that right. And that stocks all Creative Commons work that you can download for free, legally for free, via BitTorrent. And it'll be those type of places that will suffer because they won't get the suggestions for their site. So it is a bit of a shame. But then, having said that, there are alternatives to Google, and I think whilst a lot of us do use Google, there's always somewhere else to go, and Google are providing a product, and if you don't like it, you go elsewhere. They're in it to make money, they're in it for their own interests. I think it'd be very misguided to believe that Google are there just to please members of the public. Of course, they want to do that because that gets them the custom and that gets them the visitors. But I think at the end of the day, they're a company, and their first concern is to themselves. So yeah,
the funny thing here is, up until actually quite recently, maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've always heard people say, and I've kind of reluctantly agreed to it as well, is that in search engine terms, Google is by far the best. Not just because it's the most popular, but because of what it actually finds. If you do the same search in Yahoo, which is actually Bing, or Bing itself, or, I mean, I used to like Ask, and if you search for something in all these different search engines, Google always tends to be more relevant because it's gathering more data on you and it's making the searches more relevant. And it just seems to find more stuff. Now, up until 2 or 3 weeks ago, I've kind of assumed that almost everyone I speak to, I keep hearing the same things back. It's like Google is by far the best. But recently, I've seen more and more people complain that Google is getting filled up with a lot of chaff, a lot of link hosting stuff. Like you find a result and you click on it and it's just a hosting page and you need to click through to other ones, and it's just pages that are there that are they've